In a significant and abrupt development that promises to reshape the diplomatic landscape of the war in Ukraine, United States President Donald Trump has announced he will hold a face-to-face summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The high-stakes meeting is scheduled to take place on August 15th in the state of Alaska, a location rich with historical symbolism and geopolitical significance. The announcement, which came directly from President Trump via his social media platform, confirmed weeks of speculation and behind-the-scenes maneuvering aimed at finding a diplomatic off-ramp to the brutal conflict that has raged for more than 3 years. This summit marks the first in-person meeting between the leaders of the United States and Russia since before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine and represents a major pivot in the American approach to the war under the Trump administration. The state goal of the talks is to find a pathway to a rapid ceasefire and a lasting peace settlement, a core promise of President Trump's foreign policy agenda. The decision to proceed with a bilateral meeting with President Putin before any formal sit-down involving Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is a deliberate strategic choice that underscores the new administration's deal-making approach. The selection of Alaska as the venue is layered with meaning. The state's proximity to Russia, with a Barrett Strait separating the two powers, offers a practical geographical logic that has been publicly acknowledged by Moscow. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov described the choice as quite logical, noting that Russia and the United States are close neighbors and that a flight across the strait is a simple logistical matter for the Russian delegation. This practical aspect, however, is overshadowed by the deep historical context of the location. The United States purchased the vast territory of Alaska from the Russian Empire in 1867, a transaction famously known as Seward's Folly at the time, but which is now viewed in Moscow as a strategic blunder and a humiliating loss of territory. Holding the summit on this particular American soil positions President Trump as the host on land that was once Russian, a symbolic gesture not lost on observers of the complex and often fraught history between the two nations. For President Trump, the choice of a domestic venue also served a political purpose, aiming to project an image of American leadership and control over the diplomatic process. Preparations for the summit have been underway for some time, escalating after a recent visit to Moscow by Steve Witkoff, President Trump's designated special envoy for the peace negotiations. That meeting with President Putin was described by President Trump as having made a great progress, setting the stage for the Direct Leaders Summit. The announcement of the talks came on the same day as a deadline imposed by President Trump for Russia to agree to a ceasefire was set to pass. The Trump administration had threatened to impose severe secondary sanctions and tariffs, particularly targeting Russia's oil trade with partners like India and China, if no progress was made. In a move seen as a demonstration of this pressure, the administration recently imposed a significant tariff hike on Indian goods, explicitly citing India's continued purchase of Russian oil. This combination of diplomatic engagement and economic threat is characteristic of the Trump administration's strategy, which aims to create leverage to bring adversary to the negotiating table. The approach reflects President Trump's increasing frustration with what his administration sees as Moscow's effort to prolong the conflict unnecessarily. The core of the discussion in Alaska will be the framework for a peace deal. President Trump has publicly hinted that a potential agreement would likely involve difficult and controversial territorial concessions. In remarks to reporters at the White House, he stated that any deal would involve some swapping of territories to the betterment of both countries. This comment immediately raised alarm in Kyiv and in European capitals, which have long stood by the principle that Ukraine's sovereign territory is non-negotiable. President Trump acknowledged the complexity of the situation, noting the immense human costs of the fighting over contested land, but this focus remains squarely on ending the active combat. This public framing of the issue suggests a transactional approach where land could be used as a bargaining chip to secure peace. While the specifics remain under wraps, reports suggest that Russia's proposal conveyed during the Witkoff talks would involve Ukraine ceding significant territory in the Donbas region and formalizing Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea in exchange for a cessation of hostilities. The Kremlin has confirmed its attendance and the date with President Putin's foreign policy advisor, Yuri Yushakov, affirming that the two leaders will focus on achieving a long-term peaceful resolution. He noted that Russia views the process as challenging, but is prepared to engage actively and energetically. In a sign of Moscow's eagerness for the direct talks, the Kremlin also floated the idea of a future reciprocal meeting, stating that an invitation has already been extended for President Trump to visit Russia for a subsequent summit. This indicates that Moscow sees the Alaska meeting not as a one-off event, but as the potential start of a renewed and direct dialogue with Washington, a long-standing strategic objective for Putin that aims to re-establish Russia as a global power on equal footing with the United States. The focus on a bilateral discussion to the exclusion of all the parties served Putin's goal of pushing Ukraine's own agency to the side and dealing directly with the primary power he sees as his main adversary. International reaction to the summit announcement has been swift and mixed. While the prospect of ending the war is universally desired, the method and potential terms of the deal being pursued by the Trump administration have caused significant anxiety, particularly among America's European allies. The fact that neither Ukraine nor European leaders have been invited to participate in the Alaska talk has fueled fears that a deal could be struck over their heads and presented as a fait accompli. This concern is not unfounded, as President Putin has long sought a direct deal with Washington that marginalized Kyiv and the European Union. In an effort to manage these concerns, U.S. Vice President JD Vance held a meeting with European national security advisors in the United Kingdom to discuss the American Peace Initiative and the upcoming summit. A U.S. official described the meeting as having produced significant progress for the goal of ending the war, but this has done little to quell the underlying unease in European capitals. In Russia, meanwhile, officials have warned that they expect titanic efforts from unnamed countries to disrupt the planned summit through provocations and disinformation. This suggests that Moscow anticipates pushback from nations who believe their interests are being threatened by the prospect of a direct U.S.-Russia deal and who may seek to prolong the conflict. President Trump, for his part, remained optimistic about the chances for breakthrough. He has told reporters that his instinct really tells me that we have a shot at it. He has framed his motivation as one of stopping the immense loss of life and the vast financial expenditure that the war has caused. The summit in Alaska is therefore said to be a pivotal moment, not only for the future of Ukraine, but for the broader architecture of international security. It will be the first major summit between the two nuclear powers since relations ruptured in 2022, and its outcome could either pave the way for a controversial and difficult peace or lead to a deeper and more dangerous estrangement if the high-stake negotiations fail. The world will be watching as the two leaders meet on the historic and symbolic ground of Alaska, a location that serves as a potent reminder of the long and complicated history that binds their two nations. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, and so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed, and that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to World Global Conflict, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.